morning, class. The topic I will be presenting today is the issues with e-waste. So what is e-waste? Well, it is a short and informal form for electronics that are considered no longer useful. This might mean that they are outdated, meaning newer and better versions of the product exist or are no longer functioning. This term includes all electrical appliances such as cell phones and computers. Some parts of e-waste are considered hazardous, posing risks to human health, such as circuit boards that have arsenic and lead. There are an estimated 41.8 million metric tons of e-waste worldwide. Now, who are the ones responsible for creating e-waste? Well, it is obviously us humans. We are the only species capable of creating technology and having access to it. To be more specific, the ones responsible are the consumers who are able to buy electronics, as they will be more likely to throw them out. E-waste mostly comes from people who live in newly industrializing countries as well as developing countries such as Japan, the United States, and China. Now, in some countries, e-waste will be imported there to be recycled or dismantled. China is the leading importer of e-waste by 56%. E-waste is generated mostly because electronics update very frequently. For example, a new iPhone comes out every year. Many people will want the newest version of a product, and when they do get it, they get rid of their old phone because they don't need it anymore. E-waste is created when these appliances are not recycled properly. For example, nearly 100% of e-waste is recyclable, but only 15 to 20% of all e-waste is recycled. When these products are not recycled, it means that it will accumulate in landfills or in incinerators. The amount of e-waste is getting larger and larger every year. Up to 50 million tons of e-waste is expected to be dumped in 2017, mostly consisting of older computers and phones. That's up 20% from 2015, when about 41 million tons of e-waste was discarded. This is proof that the amount of e-waste generated is continuing to grow. This might be due to the fact that electronics are becoming more popular and widespread, as well as frequently updated, which will encourage consumers to buy new electronics. This trend will likely continue in the coming years. Now I will be examining the spatial significance of where e-waste is generated. As we can see in the graph, the leading countries are all developed or newly industrializing. All of these countries have developed e-waste electronics industries that can provide electronics for the public use. These industries have opened many stores that are easy to find. For example, it is common to find in Apple's or Rogers stores in developed countries such as Canada and US compared to developing countries. Due to the better quality of life and higher average income in these countries, more citizens will be able to afford to buy luxury items like an iPhone. Lastly, a larger population and population density means that more electronics will be produced and bought, even the people who buying them are more scarce. China has a larger population density, so more electronics will be bought, even if less e-waste is generated per person. Now to that all of you have a bit of background info on e-waste, this brings me to my thesis. Electronic waste has a negative impact on the world, and more efforts need to be taken to reduce the amount. Now to prove my thesis, I'm going to have to show the negative effects. I'll begin by examining the local environmental impacts of e-waste, and the town I have chosen to examine is none other than Guiyu in China, also known as the e-waste capital of the world. In this town, the nearby streams are black, acidic, and filled with e-waste. The groundwater is contaminated with chemicals such as arsenic and mercury, which come from components of e-waste such as circuit boards. This means that citizens will have less access to drinkable water. It also affects the interrelationships between humans and other species, as water is essential for the survival of all species. Many animals will die due to drinking uncontaminated water. Also, aquatic species like fish can no longer live in this area, as streams are no longer a suitable habitat. In this town, the e-waste chemicals have leached into the soil as well, which will contaminate it. No crops are able to grow. This means that there will be less food for citizens to eat, and they must get it elsewhere. The contamination of soil will also cause nearby plant life to be unable to grow. Food will be harder to find for animals that consume grass and other plants, and once these animals starve to death, the entire food chain will be affected, as other animals depend on these herbivores as prey. The dirty environment filled with e-waste causes many health risks to the citizens. A report of the town reveals a high incidence of several health conditions such as skin damage, headaches, and vertigo. These health issues are caused due to the air pollution of toxic chemicals. These chemicals become released into the air due to the burning of e-waste, which is a method of disposing. A trend found is that the children of this town will have higher lead levels in their blood than normal. In a study where 165 children in the town took a blood test, 82% of them had lead levels over 100, which is considered unnatural. A high lead level can negatively impact the development of their central nervous system. This becomes a serious issue as the damage to this system would affect their ways of doing daily activities since it sends messages between the brain and body. A pattern found was that the children whose parents worked for dismantling circuit boards had higher lead levels. Circuit boards contain lead and mercury, which proves that the burning and dismantling of these boards directly correlates with the high lead levels and negative health effects. Now for some global impacts. As you know, e-waste can release toxic chemicals when certain parts are burned. This will pollute the air, causing respiratory problems and cancer in humans. Air pollution is known to spread easily and can even cross the globe. A pattern found is that the people living near e-waste disposal zones are more prone to these health issues, and the polluted air is more concentrated in these areas, proving that there is a correlation between the burning of e-waste and the health issues caused. When the polluted air spreads to developing countries, the people there will have less access to healthcare and may not be able to treat the health issues caused. When left untreated, they could be seriously ill or die. One of these gases in copper wire is hydrocarbons, a compound of hydrogen and carbon. When hydrocarbons are released into the atmosphere, they contribute to global warming as they are a greenhouse gas. This is due to the enhanced greenhouse effect caused by humans trapping the sun's heat. Global warming causes a variety of environmental problems such as flooding, droughts, and extinction of certain animal species like polar bears due to the melting of polar ice caps. The polluted air contains compounds such as hydrocarbons that can reduce the photosynthetic ability of plants. This means that plants will not obtain the necessary nutrients in the sunlight to thrive. The death of plants will affect the food chain greatly as there will be less crops for humans and food for animal species, causing them to die of starvation. The predators that feed on these prey will find a lack of food as well. The hazardous chemicals that are released when e-waste is melted can seep into the ocean, or e-waste can be formed by a form of physical pollution when devices are dropped into the water. Oceans that are shared by many countries, making this a global problem. Ocean pollution causes many negative effects on the environment. The plastics and metals eaten by fish or other aquatic life could cause the toxins to accumulate in the creature. The toxins bioamplify up the food chain, meaning it gets stronger. These toxins could reach fish that are caught by fishermen and sold to consumers. When humans eat these fish contaminated with plastic and other toxins, it can cause negative health effects such as damage to the respiratory system. Also, the amount of chemicals in the water can kill aquatic life as well as animals that can choke by eating parts of e-waste. E-waste distribution is an illegal trade to the environmental impacts. It is often produced by developed countries and sent to developing ones. The government of these countries require vast sums of money in order to set up new laws and enforce legislation. The government also needs to pay for the infrastructure and machinery needed to dispose of e-waste. Many developing countries cannot afford to do this as they have less resources, meaning it is more costly to stop the trade. If e-waste stops being imported, the government can use its money to focus on other issues. Many electronics, when thrown out to landfills, are still functional. E-waste such as iPhones contain many raw materials such as gold, copper, and palladium. Over $60 million in gold and silver in the form of phones is dumped by Americans annually. When these products are not recycled and sent to be simply dumped, these precious resources that can be reused or sold becomes destroyed. The growing demand for electronics and less recycling of e-waste increases need to mine finite resources and requires more funds for mining operations. When we are throwing out functional electronics, it means that we are wasting these resources. When the soil is contaminated, like in Guiyu, it means that no crops can grow there. When the village cannot depend on their fields to grow crops, the villagers will have to buy them from elsewhere. This will cost more money than growing their crops themselves, as well as the fact that they need to pay transportation costs. Also, streets are no longer drinkable when contaminated. This valuable resource that could have provided the town with clean water to drink for free is no longer usable, and citizens now have to pay for water. Now for some social impacts. The e-waste industry is very unethical. In the informal sector of the industry, the workers are paid very little for long hours of manual labor and are unsupervised. Also, they frequently work with dangerous pieces of waste such as circuit boards, which contain dangerous chemicals like mercury. Surprisingly, these workers are not covered by health insurance. This means that if they get injured or start to have health issues, then they will have to pay even more money to get their issues treated. The fact that they are paid low wages means that they often cannot afford treatment, making their injuries or illness even worse. These e-waste industries are actually illegal in principle but continue to persist because the government and public ignores their activities. These informal industries also accept children to work for them, and they represent a large amount of the workforce. Children are paid $1.20 a day to dismantle glass and other toxic parts. This is considered child labor, which is considered illegal in almost all countries. Children do not have the mental and physical strength needed to perform this job and will be more vulnerable to the hazards of the industry. Their bodies, not fully developed, may not be used to the manual labor. Children cannot be expected to live long while working in this industry, thus children will survive to adulthood, causing a decline in population in the countries with these industries. Some solutions include donating an operable computer or electronic device to someone you know or organizations such as Goodwill. This will make sure your old electronic device does not become e-waste as you do not dispose of it. Keep your old electronic device if they are still functional and only replace them with a newer model if it is necessary, allowing you to conserve more resources. Make the manufacturing industry start taking responsibility. Send the electronic devices to them before the end of their lifespan and pressure the companies to have the product safely recycled, disposed, or reused. Companies will be glad to take back their products as it means that they will have to spend less money on materials used to produce them as they could just reuse the material, and resources will be conserved. Organizations have been formed to spread awareness on the e-waste problem on a global scale, including US EPA and STEP. If these organizations become more well known, the issues of e-waste will become more widespread and more people will be making a conscious effort to stop generating so much. Another solution is to make major electronic firms stop using hazardous chemicals as part of their products. This makes the product easier to recycle as well as safer for the dismantlers and the environment. Lastly, form more laws to prevent e-waste from leaving the country and support other developing countries with the funds to make these laws as well, causing e-waste easier to manage. Rotary kilns are a form of technology used to process salads. They work by processing the material in a rotating drum at high temperatures for a specific time for a physical or chemical change to occur. These kilns are a form of technology that can assist in the reduction of e-waste. The kilns extract the valuable ore from the melted remains of old devices without anyone having direct contact with the toxic chemicals. These kilns can replace workers that have to extract the minerals with their bare hands, causing many health problems. Giving recycling companies these machines will allow them to recycle more e-waste per day to the quick times and large space these kilns have. Cryomills are a machine that can recycle e-waste by crushing it into nanodust. It is a grinder with a frozen chamber that prevents any material from being melted when grinded. The machine breaks up all components into homogeneous powders and makes them easy to use. This will cause less environmental and economical concerns as no water or soil is contaminated. Also, if these machines were supplied to developing countries with an e-waste industry, the workers will be able to work more easily, quickly, and safely as it will take less manual labor to dismantle e-waste parts. In conclusion, it is safe to say that electronic waste will have a negative impact on the world, and more efforts must be put into place to stop its production and distribution. This is proved by the hazardous effects on the environment, the economy, and the well-being of humankind. We should all make an effort to reduce the amount of e-waste. Thank you for listening. Here's a list of websites I used.